Shopping locally means more than just going into a brick and mortar store. When you shop in downtown Edenton, that dollar that paid for your prescription pays for a granddaughter's ballet lessons. That same dollar then goes on to buy your new favorite blouse. Followed by an anniversary gift. When you shop at local businesses, your dollar never leaves home, supporting your friends, your neighbors, and your family. Keep your dollar in downtown Edenton.
I'll call the meeting to order, please, and welcome all of you to the regularly scheduled Edenton Town Council meeting for the month of November. In addition, and prior to, we're going to have a Edenton Redevelopment Commission meeting. For those of you who may not be aware, in our redevelopment zones, part of what is required of a municipality to establish those is that there is a redevelopment commission, which can be the town council, and that's the path we chose here. So I'll call that meeting to order as well. And Elizabeth, are you going to school us on what we have on our agenda tonight, please, ma'am?
Certainly. So tonight we're here asking you to give the staff permission to extend an offer to purchase the property at 304 East Church Street. And I believe you've received a copy of the appraisal in your packet, and you're familiar with the property. It's the first property outside of our local historic district. It's got two buildings on it, kind of coastal cottage style house in the front, and then a small rental house in the back. The house in the front dates from the early 20th century, early 1900s, and then the cottage in the back is about 1940s. And the appraisal has come in at $12,300. And the current owners of the property are Winston-Salem State University. They were given the property by the previous owner, donated, and they learned about our program, our neighborhood redevelopment program, and contacted the town and said that they would be interested in selling this property. It's within our North Oakham Street redevelopment zone, and so we were happy to have another property that was ready to be purchased. It's vacant and it's fallen into some disrepair, although it's certainly in decent condition and could be rehabbed fairly easily by an interested party. So that's what we're here asking you guys to give us permission to extend the offer to purchase, and happy to answer any questions that you might have of me at this time.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone inspecting the properties that you want to purchase for termites?
We have not done a termite inspection, I don't believe, before we've offered to purchase the properties. We've done an appraisal and not a termite inspection. I imagine that a private buyer may want to do that if they were to want to buy the property from the town. But we have not done a termite inspection, no, sir.
think the appraiser noticed that there was some evidence of termites, and so we would disclose that as part of our advertisement for sale of the property. We've had 3 or 4 people express interest in purchasing the property, so we think it's definitely worth, the $12,300 to get it in the hands, to get it out of the hands of, the previous owners were not doing anything with the property. He gave it to his alma mater so that they could in turn get a little bit of money from the town. But I think this is a way to really help, extend all the positive things that are happening on East Church Street and on Oakham Street as well.
I don't think we'll have any trouble selling it. I mean, I was talking to somebody today that was interested, and I think it'll be rehab like the rest of them on Church
We
Street.
may even talk to the same person.
Yeah, I think we did. We were probably.
Okay.
I think there'll be a lot of interest.
I
Yeah.
agree, this may be one of the property where you get several bids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We might even make a little money on it.
And I'm real pleased, Winston-Salem State University is working with us on this. This is great.
Any questions of Elizabeth about where we are with this process? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we move forward and authorize the staff to accept. Is that what we're gonna do? Accept?
You're
No,
going
we'll
to
put it out.
extend the
Extend.
offer to
I'm
purchase.
sorry,
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
We're gonna extend the offer to purchase.
So moved.
Second.
Further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? All right, that motion carries. You can extend that if you would, please, ma'am, and we'll wait and get some very positive results. And that adjourns that meeting. Okay, prior to the regular council meeting getting underway, if you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Following that, Reverend Poole, Councilman Poole, will offer an invocation. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father, all wise and everlasting God, we thank you, Lord, for another opportunity to come together as a council of this great town, that we may understand our duties and do our work that will be of progress to the town and the people of this town. We thank you for the privilege of united together with the people and the citizens of this city. We thank you and we ask that you will continue to bless this council and all of us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Chair will entertain a motion to approve those listed on your agenda.
Just one minor correction,
Yes.
Mayor. On the 11th of September, Councilman Dixon and Councilman Stallings were indeed present for the meeting. They were not listed on the people present.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That may be a first.
That may be a first.
It's nice to be here.
Good pick. All right, are there any further questions or corrections to the minutes? Okay, I don't think I ever got a motion up. Chair will entertain a motion to approve with the correction as requested. All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? Thank you very much. Now we're going to have a presentation highlighting the East Gale Street virtual tour. Once again, we'll call on Elizabeth Bryant to share that with us.
Before I start the video, I'd just like to reintroduce it, remind you what the project is. It was probably one of the best projects I've had the chance to work on. lot of really good, exciting projects, but this was really rewarding. It was a Historic Preservation Fund grant from the federal government, so that's a pass-through grant that goes to the State Historic Preservation Office. Anne Marie actually wrote the grant, and so I came in after it had been awarded and just was the lucky person able to staff the project. There have been a lot of community participants, and we've highlighted both the architectural history and the cultural importance of East Gale Street. And I'm not going to say anything else. I just want to show it to you. I'm excited to show it to you and hear your comments afterwards. We're ready to get it out to the community. People have already heard about it. There's a little bit of a buzz, and we're hoping to share it with different agencies and groups that might be able to use it in their local mission. So I'll get it started.
Chief.
I think we need them all off, Chief.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
I think it's too loud.
It's like Isabel.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
It was like I had lost my best friend. I said, this can't be happening. But I saw it. I don't know where to go. Really, this is my home. I grew up there. And, it just hurts to know that I'm not there anymore. To me, the church was the center of the community.
It's just a stressful situation with segregation and discrimination, and the only way you can do it is do your best way to not have to deal with it. So you started in the home, you was having the segregation there, and you went to church. So Cadiz was like a second home for us.
It could be a showcase again, like it used to be, a pillar of the community, It's a lot of our roots, Black heritage, Black history is so important that our children get to know and see where a lot of structure and culture in a community came from.
Yale Street is just as important from the point of view of the development of Edenton and its culture for African Americans as Broad Street and the downtown area is from the groups that are here. And people have been there just as long as they have. That was the African American community for its religion and culture.
Gill Street, to me, is like a main artery in the Black community. A lot of talent went into the community, and what I mean by that, Hannibal Badham home on Gill Street, he was one of the builders as well as with his sons who built a lot of structures here in Edenton.
East Gale Street in Edenton, North Carolina is a really very interesting and sort of a locally remarkable place, a very tight-knit community where you had the close proximity of both African American and families living very close to each other. Both white and blacks were striving to live in houses that were done in these modern and at that time contemporary styles. They're very fashionable styles. They're styles that have been promoted throughout the nation. And that really does, I think, speak to the fastidiousness of the Bowden family and their building perspective and their ability to be prominent in this community during that time period.
And some of the older family members on the street died out. Some of the younger people had left and they didn't come back. The houses were left vacant. You know, people moved on.
East Gale Street is a fascinating street historically and architecturally, and because it's right by, in the middle of things, really. It's maybe swamps on occasionally, but it needs to be preserved and needs to be vital.
We escaped segregation and discrimination by going to that church and the school. It was the fact that the church was as classed as any other church, white or black, in Edenton. That was the most distinguished thing that they had me to really locate. If we hadn't had a black community in this town, I don't think we never would have had that Catholic church. Not as decent as it was. We would have had a church, but I don't think it would be as decent as that church was.
The white Bowdens helped the black Bowdens, mulatto Bowdens, they were mulattoes, build that. There were other African American churches, but in terms of providing leadership, that's where most of the educated people were. That's where they would meet. Even with the civil rights, when Martin Luther King came here during that era, that was the main headquarters.
Cadiz Church is one of the most remarkable buildings I've had the privilege of getting to know. It's a kind of a Victorian interpretation of a Gothic revival style, and the detailing both on the interior and the exterior is quite remarkable, from the trefoil designs that kind of relate to the Trinity that are on the belfry, to the really remarkable arches, Gothic arches on the interior. The building is yet a very monumental structure. For such a wide span, I think the system that was incorporated into the building was very unique. It's worked very well, and that is why the building is still standing, because of the engineering genius of the builder. And also given the materials that he had to build the structure without steel, without some of the things that we have today.
I mean, it is powerful. It's the kind of architecture that just, makes people cry when they walk in it. And then the congregation's incredible story. And then even the name, Kadesh is the place that the Israelites stopped, out of their way out of bondage. So, it's got it all. And I think people will appreciate it just by being in it. And I think that'll be from all segments of society. You can't go in there without thinking, what a cool place.
The bigger concern was how to handle the structural movement. And over time, the church raised funds to pay a contractor to come in and put in some temporary bracing and do some additional ties to keep the building from moving any further. It wasn't really going to fall down, but if we had another hurricane or a major windstorm, it could have caused even further damage. So a very simple bracing system was designed and installed just a few years later.
The thing about that department was it was so well equipped. So when you went over there, you said, well, this is the way the other folks live. So you really appreciated the fact that there is at least one person in this town that has a decent home. And it always encouraged you to say, one day I'm going to have a home too. I'm going to have a nice home like this.
The parsonage, Methodist Church, that was beautiful. Most times we had pastors that was out of town. They used to come there and stay. And plus we used to have like meetings, or we would have Sunday school over there sometimes, Bible study, and it was beautiful.
So it's overcoming a lot of the obstacles that were in place, keeping and restricting African Americans from progressing. And you can see here by looking at this architecture that clearly these people were striving and making great movement toward middle class status during that time period.
His home was built in the 1880s, and it's a two-story, kind of a late Victorian style with really, it's pretty exquisite interior woodwork throughout. The exterior was completely bricked over in the 1960s, but the interior remains remarkably intact with very ornamental Victorian woodwork throughout. All of the buildings that he constructed were constructed with resin-rich yellow pine, very careful in selecting good materials that would last for many years. He very carefully culled through materials for all of his homes, all the buildings that he constructed, and certainly including his home.
The reason why we have that still there is that the families held on to it, the black families held on to it, and nobody was interested in gentrification back in Durham, which is, some people look at it as bad, and some people I look at it as neither good nor bad. It's just a natural part of civilization when things that are used for one group, the groups are no longer there, and because of the heritage of it, you let other groups that can afford it take it over, but not do away with it and make it functional and livable.
The houses have nice, beautiful structure, I think, especially the Bowden house. I used to play in that yard during family reunions across the street with their grandchildren, and we would run from one house back across the street to our house, and would just have a lot of fun. I remember the insides of the house. Well, at that time, us kids, we just thought it was spooky inside or stuff. But it was beautiful. I look at it now.
And you can tell by the decorative elements that it was once a very fashionable, really what we consider almost high-style Queen Anne Victorian home. That's denoted by the decorative woodwork, such as the turned frieze on the porch, the nice brackets that help on the support the frieze with the turned columns, the wonderful domed side, what some people colloquially refer to as a gazebo. It's just a side porch that has a nice roof on it, connects to the porch. And you see some of the decorative elements like the punch work on some of the balustrades, the multi-light windows at the top, and then at the very top you have what we refer to as a barge board, which is a decorative curved element on the gable end of the front of the building, the nice fan light. All of these are the elements that identify what was a very common building type, almost ubiquitous by the 1890s and 1900s, which was the Queen Anne style, which was part of the Victorian era. This is not a building I would consider to be beyond repair at all. I've seen, and I know for most people that don't look at these types of buildings all the time, this looks like a hopeless cause. But I would say that this is a building that has great vitality to it. It looks bad. Peeling paint always looks a lot worse than it actually is. We do see some rotten wood on this structure, but all of the major decorative elements are still here. And I see a lot more peeling paint than I do rotten wood, which is always a good thing. I would say in this case, this building has a lot of potential for rehabilitation.
The house I lived in was built in 1765. Who built that house? It was a tavern, it was an inn where settlers bed down. You know, it had dirt floor. To me, if you tore things down, it's like erasing the history. You know, this is proof. The structures are the proof that this happened, or this was done back then.
Because it's a rare surviving, basically one-room house or one-room inn that was enlarged either in the later 18th century or the early 19th century. But it was built probably in the mid-1760s. It shows up on the Saudier map from the 1760s. But it's a remarkable small house, one-room house. It was converted into kind of what we call a coastal cottage with a porch roof that's kind of tied in or engaged to the main roof with this nice little sweep on it.
I remember riding around in a car with somebody from the town who was interested in cleaning up the mess and tear down that old building and talk to them about that house. That they were old and important not to tear them down.
I can hear that other person saying, well, that's just an old junky building. Why do I care about that?
Well, look again. It's interesting. It's part of fabric of the history of this town.
This is the Price House, believed to have been built by Robert Price, I believe. He was a carpenter. No doubt, I think he was probably associated in some way with the Adams family, perhaps worked for them, just living in this neighborhood. One would think that they were certainly close associates. This is an interesting little house. It's what we call a traditional gable front form, which is a form that goes back really to the ancient period, really all the way back to the Greeks when they were doing those temple form properties. It's something that Thomas Jefferson really promoted a lot. He liked the sort of classical aspect of it. In this case, it's decorated with some interesting, sort of what we call late Victorian expressions of the Gothic revival, which is really the keen post treatment at the very top in the apex of the gable in the front. It has that nice little punchwork and sawn design that comes down as sort of a shortened version of a verge board on the front. And of course, it has its original upper portion of the decorative porch. Has the original porch post. It has all but it seems to be one of the original decorative brackets that are so associated with that late Victorian architecture.
So people here love to save things. There's a preservation angle with something, we're going to get it done. And I think that's different than other small towns.
So the community is sharing, and that's got a lot to do with just love. To have life back to Gill Street, it just would do a lot for Edenton as a whole. It would do a lot for the Black community. The culture would be recognized, as it should be. Good things are going to come from this.
And I think that's what's the most important thing, that it's the beginning of trying to really honor that architecture and honor that place. And as a member of the town council, as a, just somebody living here with a love of architecture, now is the time to do that.
That is going to work if somebody here decides to not think about it as black and white and think about it as what is going to be good for everybody. I think it's a wonderful building to be saved for its own sake.
And I'm looking forward to that day that I get back over there. And like I told my children, I told my sister, I said, I need to walk in there one more time. I told my sister, I might even get married there. Oh, that's old people get married too.
Once you're gone forever. And part of the story will be gone. So I think what's there now is well worth thinking outside the box and trying to explore different avenues to maybe first stabilize some and then later preserve, rehabilitate the structures.
once you tear it down. You know, it's like erasing history. And I never want that to happen, ever.
That's it. Y'all enjoyed it.
Very good.
Very moving. Very moving.
Very well done. That gentleman was way ahead of his time. I mean, really. I mean,
It
that
was.
was,
So I'm gonna take Reverend Poole's hat and just pass it down there and all make contributions.
He'll give it back to me.
So with that production and piece such as it is, we would do with, we go, I know the effort behind it all is to expose the community in such a lovely way as it was, and to show its value both historically and for the people who grew up in the neighborhood. So where do we go to get the support? I mean, or is it already in the works? And
Well, we wanted you all to see it first.
okay,
We actually showed it to the Preservation Commission first, so I hope that's okay. And then we plan to let it out to different groups in the community that can use it. We have, you saw the long version. We have two other versions that are a bit more condensed. One focuses primarily on Cadiz Church, and the other is sort of just a condensed version of the long version. I know that I've already had a request from the Edenton Historical Commission who wants to use it with an exhibit that they have on African-American craftsmen, builders, and furniture makers. The folks at the State Historic Site had talked to us a little bit about being able to use it for some of their exhibits that are going to be coming up. We plan to use it put it out on the town's website, social media. Obviously, we'd like to let the group that are working to save Cadiz Church use it to do promotional material to maybe fundraise for that effort. So it's got a variety of uses. I don't know that I expected it to come out with as many different uses as it will have. Like you said, it's just for knowledge for young folks to have about the history here in town that maybe hasn't gotten out as much as it should have, to fundraising for Cadiz, to drawing people to Edenton who are interested in African American history. I mean, that is a growing segment of the tourism industry, and specifically with historic tourism. So we've got a lot of different uses, and just basically wanted to get y'all's green light to start sharing it and getting it out there.
Are the grants available to rehab the church out there? Are we?
I'll let Councilman Dixon talk about that.
Well, we received one planning grant, and so it's a big fix. And so we are in the process. I mean, if you see Audrey Bond, give her a hug, because she is just working so hard on this. And we've gotten a planning grant from the National Trust and Sacred Places, and then we are going to have to hire a fundraiser to do a campaign outside of this. This really is a project that's going to require fundraising outside of Edenton. I think the wonderful thing about it is that people are starting to realize what an amazing place that street is, how intact it is, how it tells the story of you know, African American struggle, but also triumph. And so I just am really proud of the whole, you know, the whole town for coming together behind it.
Are the stained glass, are they?
They're
all
in storage.
They're in
Yeah,
storage.
and they were made by Tiffany. So, I mean, some of them got banged up pretty badly during the hurricane, but they were absolutely made by Tiffany and installed in Edenton, North Carolina. So,
Councilman Dixon, do you have any idea what the final number would look like if
$2 million.
2 million?
Somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, I think we could get it done for $2 million. But it's got there's just every reason in the world for us as a community to come together around, you know, restoring this church and the parsonage.
Yes.
So,
I think it's also important to note that East Gale Street is in your redevelopment zone, and we hope to be able to use this to help promote interest in acquisitions of property. The town owns the Price House that was highlighted, and we've just received the appraisal for the Hannibal Badham Junior House. And there are other important structures there that, because they're in our zone, because they're in the local district and the national district, they're eligible for the very valuable state and federal rehabilitation tax credits. So we're hoping to attract investment to help restore the houses.
and these places don't exist in other, I mean, they just don't still exist as a group this large. I mean, even in Raleigh, I know Preservation North Carolina was working on one house, but I mean, we've got an entire street of just incredible buildings.
Is this street also on the trolley tour?
Yeah, it is. It's on every, that's happened a long time ago. I mean, that's been included. Bob can.
Badham Junior House, so to speak.
A family member, an heir to Hannibal Badham, who lives in Maryland, and it was Mr. Overton, and he was one of our biggest supporters of the redevelopment zone. He was working with Sam Barrow when we first started that in the bracing that went up. Sam helped get advice from the State Office of Historic Preservation to stabilize the house, but unfortunately he passed away about a year and a half ago. So the house is owned by his wife, who we're in touch with in Maryland, and he has a son that lives here in Edenton as well.
That lives here.
And if anybody has any other ideas, I mean, you know, everybody's open to new suggestions, but I feel like it's really moving forward now.
Well, kudos to everyone involved with putting that production together. I'm sure it'll do a lot toward those audiences that you just mentioned, Elizabeth, as well as to our citizens as a whole, for further appreciation of our African American community and the contributions that were made from the beginning of this community to this day. So, very good.
Thank y'all very much for participating in the grant, and if any of you think of an organization you'd like to share it with, just let me know and we'll get it out there.
Okay. All right, moving now to our committee meeting reports. We will begin tonight with Public Works, and that's chaired by Councilman Stallings, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We have two items on the agenda tonight. The first one is recommended that we approve a USDA engineering services agreement for the upgrades of the wastewater treatment plant as was presented at our other meetings, and I will put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the engineering services agreement as just described. Any further questions or comments? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? All right, thank you, sir.
It is also recommended that we approve a resolution accepting state revolving loan for sanitary system project as it was presented at our previous meeting. And I will put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
All right, motion and a second to approve the resolution revolving loan agreement for sanitary sewer system project. Questions or comments on that? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no?
And that is all we have, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll hear from our Utilities Committee, and that's chaired by Councilman Bond, please.
Yes, Mayor, we only have one item tonight. It is recommended that council approve the letter of support for the broadband initiative as presented. I present that as a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second to approve the letter of support for broadband initiative. Questions, comments? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? Thank you, sir. Moving now to our Administrative Committee, that's chaired by Councilman Biggs, please, sir.
Mayor, we only have two items tonight. It is recommended that the council approve professional service agreement with Highland Land Planners to update the UDO. As all of y'all know, this has got to be done, and they submitted the best proposal for this, so I will put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the Holland professional services for the UDO improvements or changes. Any further questions or comments?
I don't know if I was supposed to say this, but it's not to exceed $10,500.
Okay. Further questions, comments? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? Motion carries.
Oh, number two, excuse me there, I was looking at the resolution that we're about to adopt, I hope. The Chamber of Commerce recently adopted this resolution, so thank you, Wynn, for asking us to consider this resolution that will help protect the North Carolina farmers. So we will put that in the form of a motion to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the resolution just described for support of our farmers. Further questions or comments?
No farm, no food, right?
There you go.
Correct. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? All right, that carries.
That's all we got.
Thank you, sir. Finance Committee is chaired by Councilman Dixon, please, sir.
We have two quick items tonight. One is recommended that the council approve a resolution appointing a deputy finance officer and a deputy clerk as presented. And I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second for those two appointments.
Now, that's Anne Marie as a deputy finance, and that's Tammy as a deputy clerk.
Yes.
Yes.
Further questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? All right, that carries. Thank
We
you.
have one other thing. It's recommended that the council approve a budget amendment for professional services to amend the UDO as presented. And I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to amend the budget for the professional services that we just approved for the UDO.
That's the 10,500.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? All right. The Holland Group, by the way, going back to an item that we just completed a discussion with relative to the Bantam properties and Katie's Church. They were the same organization, for those of you who weren't with us at the time, that guided us through the adoption of the idea and then subsequent passage of the proper ordinances and so forth to create the redevelopment zones, which will be, and already have been, very valuable to this community going forward. So glad to have them back doing some more work for us. All right, moving now to new business. Tonight we have a request that's coming to us from the ACES Booster Club. David Ray, the president of the club, and Wynn Dale are here with us tonight to present to us their request. So gentlemen, thank you for coming, and we look forward to what you have to tell us.
Good evening. My name is David Ray, Vice President of Booster Club. Before I begin what I had planned, I'd like to personally thank each of y'all for adopting the resolution supporting farmers. As someone who, that's how I make my living, and that was specifically geared towards Smithfield Foods. On behalf of Smithfield, we'd like to thank you as well for adopting that motion and showing public support. So, I'd like to thank the council for allowing me this time to speak. I'd also like to thank Anne Marie and Wynn for their assistance in gathering information concerning the water tower project. John A. Holmes is one of the centerpieces that make the town of Eden a beautiful and special place. Its athletic facilities are certainly a source of pride for our school and our community, and they rival any school in the area in their superiority. And the athletic teams at John A. Holmes continue to compete at the highest levels and have a trophy case full to prove that. Over the past 2 years, we have a baseball state championship and 3 track state championships that were won last year. Our football team has just won their conference for the 3rd straight year, and over the last 3 years, they've won 10 or more games in each of those 3 seasons, which has never been done before in John A. Holmes history. So a special time, right now for the football team, and we're looking forward to a deep run into the playoffs. The water tower in left field of Park Avenue offers a unique opportunity for the town to show its Aces pride. The Eden and Aces logo would face the school and remind everyone who visits that this is our house. The dimensions will be an impressive 3 foot by 6 inches and 46 inches long, 46 feet long, excuse me. The cost of this project is an estimated $3,995. The Booster Club comes before you tonight seeking your approval to pursue this project, and would ask that you consider partnering in the funding once the club membership has approved the proposal. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Wynn also has a short presentation.
If I may, before questions, I just want to do a quick presentation here and talk a little bit about water towers. When you start doing something, you get into it, you really don't know what you're getting into, and you learn a lot. So I learned a lot about water towers in this process. Back when water towers started being erected, they put names on all the water towers as a aviation aid, because back in the day there was no GPS, there was no beacons or whatever. People were using compasses and maps. So the towns identified themselves by putting the name on the water tower. And over the years that's progressed with the different GPS and all the navigation aids out there. The water tower logos have kind of morphed into something different. You see how nice that one looks compared to what that reverse one was. And then, you start looking at some of the more creative logos. That's Mount Olive, obviously the pickle company, so when you see that, you know what's there. So it's become a marketing tool for communities. And then you see that one, that's a watermelon down in Texas. And probably one of the most famous ones is the Gaffney Peach. So just to give you an idea now, what we're proposing tonight is not setting a precedent. In the past, there was logos on the tower. And you can see on the left side, this was snapped out of an old yearbook, by the way. Edenton was on the left and there's Aces on the right. There's a better shot of the Aces. Now, obviously, that Aces was not professionally done. I think Roland may know who went up there and painted it. I don't know. So, anyway, it had Edenton and then Aces. And then here's what we're proposing. David talked about it a little bit a while ago. 3 feet 6 inches tall, 46 inches long, and it would face the high school and Broad Street in that area. So, Dave, you want to cover that a little bit more?
Just any questions? And again, what we're looking for your approval to pursue the project, and then as a club, we would have to vote on whether we would pursue it, and then seek funding through funds we've already raised or funds that we'll raise in the future. So we didn't want to get a lot of excitement within the membership if we didn't have, go forward approval from the council.
David, you and Gwen gonna be the one painting it up there.
I watched a guy hang off this rail the other night.
Put rolling up there.
And he was up there with a rope sitting on a board about that wide, clipping off wires, so no. I got a little sick to my stomach watching him.
I concur, that's enough.
Any questions, council members?
Yeah, I'd like to ask the question, what is the membership design here?
So what is our membership?
Yeah, I think you said,
Well, we believe that our membership will be supportive of it, as we bring it to them as a motion. So the feeling is that yes, we would be supportive of it.
oh, okay, are you not asking for outside membership for this particular project?
As far as funding,
Yeah.
yes, we would accept any outside funding whatsoever. Our mission as a booster club is to enhance what our athletes already have, on top of what the school system and athletic department provide for them. So the majority of our projects would, if they don't benefit the athletes themselves, we will not pursue them. This one is a little bit outside of what we would normally do as a club. We're spending anywhere from $25,000 to $35,000 a year that we're fundraising, that we're putting back into the athletic department at high school. And that's directly, there's no pay-to-play sports at our school, at our high school, and we help make sure that that happens, because that's not the case everywhere. There are a lot of public schools where kids have to pay to play, but not at John A. Holmes.
I think it's a great idea. I think it'll be good for the town, good for the school. I like the idea of, identifying the aces. I think it's great. I'll make a personal contribution. I think it's terrific.
Need to borrow your hat again, Mr. Poop.
Yeah.
I'm sure I can count on you, Steve.
Yes, sir.
I hope it keeps the high school here. That's what I like.
I hope that my remarks let you know that's where I'd like for it to stay as well.
Emery, would the proper procedure be for us to call for a motion to offer the approval of the logo? Is it subject to anything? Does any town department need to make sure everything, supervise, whatever?
No. We would need the council's approval because we would have to amend the contract that we have with the company that's going to repaint the tower. And we learned, I was sharing with David and Wynn earlier that I think the cost was around $3,900. And that will pay for the base and then the paint that goes over it. And then going forward, when we get ready to repaint it again in another 10 to 15 years, it will be either an extremely minimal cost or no cost at all because that base will be there. So it's really like a one-time upgrade that then you could keep, extending. And I did not realize, listening to your mission about you all raise funds to help facilities and to help the athletes. And I'm just wondering, Mayor, if you would want us to try to figure out a way maybe to do some, if they paid for ACES and we paid for Edenton, could we look at the budget? I'm just thinking that we sold the street sweeper that we didn't think we were going to get any money for, and we got some money for that. Would that be something you all would be, if you're interested and willing to
Partner with
allow it, then, maybe we can figure out a way to help pay for the share of the signage or the wording that is Edenton, and then let you all try to raise the money for
That's
ACES.
7 of the 11 letters, y'all.
I've already done the math.
Okay, well, is that something we would address up front now, or do we just need to give them approval to go ahead and speak to their club about it?
Well, time is going to run short. We have, what we say, about 2 weeks to let the contractor know. So I would think that tonight,
Okay.
if you all would approve allowing that, the Edenton Aces to be painted to the tower, and then direct us to come up with the, identify source of funding to pay for the Edenton portion, and then work with the ACES to help them raise the money for the ACES portion. If that could be a motion tonight, we would try to make that work.
You'll take the motion, so moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to authorize the Booster Club to paint Edenton Aces on our water tower, with the town agreeing to pay for the lettering of Edenton in that. Is that the way you want it to go?
Yes, sir.
And agreeing with some type of partnership with payment, is that what you said?
Yes.
All right. We have a motion and a second to that effect. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no. You got it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Now, did y'all plant that idea, or was that originated up here by Steve Mann?
I'm pleasantly surprised.
Okay, very good. Very good. We're happy to do it. All right. Anne Marie, would you handle the next 2 items on the new business, please?
Yes, Mayor. Virginia Smith, our finance officer, has prepared a budget amendment for the preservation grant, which produced the wonderful video that you saw earlier. When we received the grant, we amended last year's budget, not realizing that the actual completion was going to roll over into this budget year. So we're asking you to approve that amendment as prepared, Mayor.
Okay. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the budget
So
amendment
moved.
just described.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to that effect. Any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, no? Thank you.
Mayor, we've been working, as you know, with the solar farm developer on the Yopim solar farm. The developer presented us with a check of $460,000 in the spring to pay for the upgrades that are necessary on the town's electric distribution system to be able to wheel the solar that's generated back from the farm to our substation. And we solicited bids for the actual labor cost to install the upgrades. We've procured all of the equipment and materials and supplies. Bud Powell has done that. He's been terrific, and we've got all that material here that will save the developer money because there won't be contractor, markup on that. So the contract that was put out to bid is for the actual labor work, and you will see that from a dollar standpoint, the low bidder is Maztec at $108,000. There was an error, a mathematical error in their bid, and they left off $22,000. So the bid is actually $130,000, but they proposed to do the work in 120 days, which is beyond the estimated completion date that the developer is striving for. The next low bid is from River City Construction, and they're out of Washington. And their bid is higher It was $169,797, but they proposed to do the work in 56 days. And that the difference, the additional cost is worth it for the developer to get the project done within 56 days. And so under the procurement laws, you are required to award to the lowest responsible bidder. And MasTech, I don't know if they've returned our engineers' calls yet, because they had questions. They were trying to reach them about the bid error. We think that they saw that they left so much money on the table that they don't want this bid. And the solar farm developer has sent a letter saying that they agree and recommend and hope that the council will award it, excuse me, to River City for $169,000. And that's our recommendation, and hope that you'll see fit to make that award. And we're within budget based on the materials, the equipment, the $169,000, and then what we're paying our engineer out of the funds that the solar farm provided.
What is the distance between the solar farm and the electrical distribution? It's quite a ways.
The reconducting is about 1.5 miles to where they have to tie in on how.
Okay, all right.
Okay, having heard that explanation of the award of the bid and the bidders, Chair would entertain a motion to proceed based on staff recommendation, which would be River City, correct?
Yes, sir.
So moved, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion to award that to River City. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any questions or comments?
You might have said, and I was pulling up another issue, Hood's good with all of this, I'm assuming?
I did not run it by Hood. I reviewed the statutes, I reviewed the contract, I reviewed the bid specifications. But if you want me to ask them to
As far as being,
double check
not
it,
being the
happy
lowest
to.
bidder, is that what you're saying?
Okay, other questions? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We've now reached the agenda item whereby council members, you may express those items you think are timely and important. Share it with your colleagues.
Mayor, I just have one thing to bring up. Regarding the property at 215 East Church Street, I realize that Ms. McLean has kind of come under the wire to meet the building code, well, adhere to the building code corrections. My concern is that, and as we go forward, that I would hope the building inspector would watch that property closely in the future for any more violations of building code. And I hope the police department will monitor that house closely in the future, based on what we heard at the last meeting about alleged criminal activity. I really have a concern about that house. I really do. I wish we took care of it earlier, but be that as it may, she complied to those violations. But I really have some concerns.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there any progress report on that, or are we all where we are?
We are going to be making a report at the committee meeting on the work that the police department is doing, following up with the concerns that were expressed. And we've talked to the people that spoke at the at the meeting and have advised them of what we've found so far, and we'll have a report for you November 26th at the committee meeting.
Is Hood going to give us some additional ideas about regulation, how to going forward, how to make sure that doesn't happen?
We have, Elizabeth sent a request to Hood and Ben Gallup, an attorney with Hood's office that helps us with code enforcement issues, to look at the Raleigh ordinance that had the requirement of a registration program. And also, Elizabeth raised a number of questions that hopefully they'll be able to address, and we'll hope to have that for you too at the end of November.
Well, I think y'all know my frustration with this, and if you didn't see my email, I'll be more than glad to send it to you again. I am really disappointed that we didn't handle this the way it should have been handled. I'm very disappointed. We were in a situation that we told staff to do away with it. It was not in compliance. Should have never gotten this far. Should have never gotten this far. And it kept slipping and kept slipping and kept getting pushed back and pushed back. And I don't mind telling you, I'm really disappointed that we have allowed this to happen in that neighborhood where people are working as hard as they can work to bring that neighborhood back. We sat here and looked at that video tonight of Gale Street, and I am so happy we're trying to do something there. But if we're going to let this slip and let it fall back like it fell back this time, there is nothing to stop someone from doing it again on Gale Street. As a matter of fact, if I owned a property on Gale Street, I might tell you, hey, guess what? I'm not going to do it. And I'll push you as far as I have to push you. I don't think there'd be a court or a jury in this town that would have said, so you let this one get by with it, but you're not letting this one. I know I sound frustrated because I am. I'm very frustrated about it. I just hope in the future we handle these situations a lot better than this one was handled.
Is it out of the question to have the building inspector monitor that? I mean, is this something that he can be doing? I know he's busy, he's got a load on him.
It's very difficult to monitor for minimum housing without going inside the house. And you have to have reasonable cause to go inside the house. We are monitoring from, looking at other nuisances around the property, around the neighborhood. Certainly, we've asked the police chief, we asked the fire department, we asked our nuisance code enforcement officer and the building inspector to always keep, eyes open for potential violations. The violations that were found at this house were all found when we had to get an administrative search warrant to go in the house, and then you find the violations inside the house. It's very difficult from the exterior visually to see minimum housing violations.
What bothers me, like Steve said, we have a developer in town who's just rehabbed 2 homes down there. And this nuisance boarding house is right there in the middle. I went by there today, about two hours before I came here. There's a rotten mattress right in the front yard. And it's like they don't care. I don't think the new people have moved into the house yet, but once they do, they're going to have to put up with that. And it just bothers me too. I'm frustrated.
Well, we'll, junk on the front yard, on the front porch, we abate those kind of nuisances all the time. We'll take care of that. We'll notify the property owner. An assessment will be put on the utility bill to pay for the time and labor that it took. This was the first time we went through minimum housing where we did not have cooperation from the landlord. And we needed, because it was that first time, we needed guidance, and it did take an extraordinarily long time. I apologize, you know, it's on me. We have huddled and we have talked about how we can move forward now that we have all of the boilerplate legal notices, notices to serve the property owner, the model administrative search warrant, the model ordinance ordering closure. After that, you have to send another notice of closure, but we've got all that now. So now we know how to do it, and you know, we'll make sure that the timeline is tightened up as much as possible. Certainly understand the frustration, and we don't want to let anybody by. You know, Ms. McLean, she abated 3 out of the 4 violations, and that 4th one was just, anyway. But I hear what you're saying.
Well, it took 8 months to abate the 3 out of the 4. That's number one. But even after we go through all of the process that we went through, and this board said, for lack of a better term, shut it down, and we still didn't shut it down. We had every legal right at the time to shut it down.
Well, you just can't, after you say shut it down, there's a whole other
I
host
agree,
of processes.
but it failed. Plain and simple, it failed. And we can't afford failure when people are trying to put money in all that area out there. We can't afford failure. I'm sorry, that cannot happen.
Is there any, within the permitted use of a grandfathered piece of property such as this is, does it also, I'm getting back to what Craig was talking about with respect to future observation of the property, is there any kind of probationary or some attachment that can be made to the future operation that another violation, then we don't have to go through this anymore?
Can we let her know in some way that she is under our radar right now? I mean, without.
She's well aware of that. The police chief has met with her. Holly, the chief building inspector, has met with her. She's well aware of it. And Mayor, to answer your question, we can certainly ask Hood. I know that we asked because of the violations in one boarding house that she owned. Did that give us the right to seek an administrative search warrant on other property that she owns? And we were told no. You have to treat each unit separately. But is there a way to have a 3 strikes and you're out rule? Is that?
Yeah, that's
we can certainly ask if those statutes allow for something like that.
Okay. Anything else
Just
from
one
Tommy?
other thing, just this Emery, fire chief, where we stand with that position.
I have set up interviews. I'll be interviewing people next week and the week after.
Man, you did a good job last month of giving us an update on the hotel. I didn't know if you had heard any other things from those guys or not.
I did, Steve. I did call Bob Hauser last week because I was asked to give a report to the Edenton Development Corporation, and they have gotten what they're calling the final letter of intent from the person who owns the New Market tax credit. And that person, in his letter of intent, has met with the accounting firm that's working with the Saga Group, and everybody is on the same page, and Bob was in the process of preparing the final presentation that he will make to the Gupta family, supposedly this week. So maybe there'll be
That sounds encouraging.
It
Yeah.
does.
I'll be willing to start a pool on it. But anyway, no, I honestly believe that we're very, very close to a resolution there.
That building is deteriorating daily. I was behind it yesterday. I mean, windows are open, birds are flying in.
Yeah. It's a mess.
And do we have an update on the, Mr. Glover and what his plans are for the building?
I've had several conversations with his attorney. This is on the Brew Pub Brewery project late last week and then again today. And he is reaching out to Mr. Glover and, telling him that there's nothing more the town can do in terms of making repairs to the building. And he needs to let us know this week if he's going to move forward or not.
But I'd really like for us to consider if we even have to have a special meeting, there's not a single one of us in here that would do a real estate deal like this. And if you be honest, you wouldn't. To just allow someone to keep on and on and on and on without some type of a deposit, some type of escrow. We've been, and now that it's done, I want it to move forward and be done. Like everyone else in this town that fought so hard for it. Whether it's there, whether we get a brew pub somewhere else, whatever takes place. But I just think we owe it to the citizens that did work so hard on this, that we ask him to either put some money up in good faith and let's move on, versus every month for the last 8-9 months we've been hearing, well, we're talking with his attorney, he's doing this, he's doing that. I don't mean ugly, he had 2 years to do his due diligence. And I would have thought that before you would agree to purchase a building, you would have already done your due diligence. And I'm hearing about this from the citizens just about as much as I'm hearing about another grocery store. What is happening? Why are y'all not making him move along? So I'd like to see this body, if y'all are willing. If you're not, I understand. But we need to put something in play that says, Mr. Glover, it's time. You said you want to come here, and we want you to move along and come on, or we need to do something else with the building to enhance Edenton.
Yeah. If not a deposit, certainly put a time out there. Such and such a date, no commitment, we will put it back on the market.
Closing date, yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so, Emery, going back to what you just said, you expect to hear something from either his attorney or Mr. Glover this week, right?
Oh, yeah, by hopefully tomorrow.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments on timely and important, any items? I got one. Since we're talking about things in need of repair, and I read about what I'm getting ready to say in another community that had to issue some sort of demand for it to take place. We have a boat sunk in our creek, and it's sitting on the bottom, becoming more and more of a hazard as it deteriorates. Do we have any jurisdiction of having a vessel like that removed from its position in as much as it's sitting on the bottom of a public body of water?
The county has been handling that nuisance. I need to talk with Cord Palmer because of the potential for contamination and fuel and what have you. And he's been in contact with the boat owner, but I'll follow up on that, Mayor, and get a report and see what, the owner of the marina, and then what the boat owner, and what Cord says, and then to see if we have any ordinances that could be leveraged.
Yeah,
Didn't Elizabeth City have an issue very similar to this?
yeah, that's where I read about it. Yeah. I read it in the Daily Mail.
Had to be true.
True.
Okay, anything else from the council members?
Are we gonna discuss, the speed limit on Granville tonight?
Don't have any plans to.
Okay,
That will be on the committee meeting, November 26th.
okay.
All
Well,
right,
I got another one.
all right.
The stoplight on Paradise and Burr Street, that light, you gotta sit there about 10 minutes before it go. I mean, you go watch the folks from the other stoplight down there, and they pass, it take 10 minutes. But then somebody finally cut the bushes. Now you had to work eight minutes to make if you're coming from 17 to make a left-hand turn, you gotta wait about 8 minutes. And I think something ought to be, a different timing ought to be on that stoplight, like the one on Church Street.
Mayor,
People
can I- Sure.
people start cutting through the parking lot or going around the other way because it's so long.
We've reported that to DOT, and they responded that the contractor has been authorized to make the repair, and he was waiting on a piece of equipment that had to be replaced, and we'll follow up. I would have thought it would have been finished by now or corrected, but we'll go ahead and tell DOT it's still not working, and please hurry up, but they're aware of it.
Okay,
Thank you.
That's it.
all right, thank you, sir. We now open the floor for public comment. Anybody has anything they'd like to bring to the attention of the town council, please step to the podium, identify yourself, and we'll be happy to hear what you have to say.
Hi, Joe Liana. I just want to say, Elizabeth, that was amazing, that presentation. And Councilman Dixon mentioned that we'd have to go outside of the town to try to get funding, and he was open to ideas. And something struck me as I was watching the presentation. This town has so much history in it that many of us aren't even aware of. But I saw something up there that Dr. King came to Edenton and spoke here. And did I see that he stayed on Gale Street at the parsonage, or?
I think they did some of the planning for his speaking through the church.
Okay, so what ran through my mind was there has to be some national foundations around Dr. King that might be interested in enhancing the history here. He came here I'm obviously a newcomer here, but I'd love to know why and what he talked about. I would think on a national level that would be interesting, and preserving Black history and enhancing it here would be interesting to Dr. King Foundations. So just an idea that I wanted to get out there when I saw that. But thank you again, Elizabeth, that was amazing.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Chair, we'll put you on a committee.
He made
I'd be happy to help.
he made 2 trips to Edenton.
And we need to talk about that stuff. We get a lot of tourists here with that.
Well, there's a sign marking, there's a historical
In front of
monument.
the
that-
armory.
Yeah, in front of the armory.
Where he spoke.
Yeah.
So, and if you want me on a committee to help look into it, happy to volunteer.
Great, thank you, sir. Other comments for the council from the public? Okay, seeing no one, we'll close the public comment portion of our agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, the town council is getting ready to go into executive session under the North Carolina General Statute 143-318 11A6 to discuss a personnel matter, and therefore we would ask for you to please leave the room. And we will reconvene when the closed session is complete. And if there's anything to report, we will state so, but. And I will entertain a motion at this point that we go into closed session.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second to go into closed session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We are in closed session. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have just concluded our closed session as was scheduled on our agenda tonight, and the chair would entertain a motion that we adjourn from that.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
We are now adjourned from closed session, and we've reached the point of adjournment for this meeting. So thank you all for your participation. We'll see you next time. Good night.
10 minutes.